Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jill, and on this channel, we share ways of living our life frugally, mindfully, and in the process, build a life that we love. So today, we are going to put up a bunch of fresh vegetables and citrus in the freezer.
Yeah.
There are lots of ways of preserving food. Canning is one of them, freezing is another, dehydrating, freeze drying, many of those things. Today, we're gonna use the freezing method. I just bought myself a new freezer. I'm very excited about that. We have a very small house here and we are very limited on space. And so canning is not something that I've ever really gotten into a whole lot because I don't have the storage space for all the jars. There's a couple things that we need to understand about freezing. Freezing food is not just about cleaning it, dicing it, throwing it in bags and throwing it in a freezer. Some of it needs to be blanched. What blanching is putting that food into a pot of boiling water for usually a short period of time, like 30 seconds to 5 minutes. And what that does is it just ensures that that food is in the best way to be able to be frozen to keep its texture and its flavor, but not everything needs to be blanched. And so we need to make sure that we're blanching what needs to be and at the time that we need to, and maybe pre-freezing some of it as well. So we're gonna go over all this stuff. So today we have carrots and green onions and yellow onions, citrus and zucchini, a couple different kinds, some celery, tomatoes, peppers. We got a bunch of stuff and we're gonna go over all of these things. Now, if you are enjoying this kind of content, please go subscribe or follow my channel, wherever it is that you're seeing this on. Make sure to like it, comment, interact with me. Let me know how this benefited you, or all of this helps my channel grow and it helps me to be able to continue bringing you content like this. So also go back and look at my other videos. I have nearly 100 videos now out there from everything from homeschool to homestead to farm animals and lots of recipes from the kitchen. So go ahead and check out all those videos once you're done with this one. So starting with freezing, there's a few things that we are gonna get set up, and each food item is going to require a little bit of different stuff, but it's really not that complicated. And please don't be overwhelmed or decide not to do anything because you're not quite sure how to do it. Don't not step into this realm of preserving food because of your fears of not knowing how to do it, because we're going to break it down. It's going to be really simple. The first thing we're going to need is a pot of boiling water. This is what we're going to use to blanch everything we need. When it comes out of there, we're going to need a big bowl full of ice water, actual ice and water, and that's going to stop the cooking from the blanching and not get our food overcooked. So we're going to need a big bowl for that. In some cases, we are going to need a cookie sheet, a tray of some sort, something that fits inside your freezer. You can put parchment paper on it in order to keep everything from sticking and keep it easier for cleanup. And in some of these items, we're going to go ahead and lay this food out and put it in the freezer and let it sit for several hours and kind of pre-freeze it before we put it in our bag. What happens is when you pre-freeze on a tray like this and then put it in your bag, when you take it out of the bag, it's not all stuck together into one big solid chunk. So it makes it to where you don't just have one big solid lump in the freezer. And of course, you're going to need either Ziploc bags or a food saver. So I highly recommend if you have that, but if you don't, Ziploc bags are totally fine. Just make sure that you just try to push out as much of the air, and you can do that by sticking a straw in the corner and sucking the air out and then quickly zipping it, or just pushing it out, you know what I mean? The first thing that we need to do is we need to get all this food washed, and we want to wash it really, really well, get all the stickers off and get it dried off. We're going to go through and do that. Also, I want to add that there is a small little byproduct that we're going to come out with at the end of all of this preserving, and that is we are also going to keep all of the scraps that we cut off, the tops of the carrots, the skins of the onions, all those things, and instead of putting them in our compost or feeding them to our chickens, we're actually going to put them in a Ziploc bag today. And we're going to put that in the freezer as well. And we're going to use that to make bone broth or any type of broth. I have a couple chickens in my fridge, rotisserie chickens, that I'm going to tear everything apart. And I'm also going to put that in the freezer so that I have fresh rotisserie chicken when I need it that's frozen in the fridge. Funny thing, I don't know if any of you have the same issue that I have, but when I was pregnant with my last daughter, I couldn't do poultry, zero, zip, gross. And to this day, I have a really hard time dealing with anything poultry that is raw. If it's frozen chicken, I can put it in the Instapot, I can do whatever. But if it's like a thawed out piece of chicken, oh boy, I tell you what, it takes all I got to be able to handle that. So it may not be the most efficient way of doing it, but it is the way that I prefer to do it if I can, if it's the affordable thing. And that is to buy whole rotisserie chickens, and then I get a twofold out of it. I get to pick all the meat off of it and freeze it or prepare it for or whatever dishes. And then also I get to keep that carcass to make my bone broth. I could buy me a whole frozen bird and probably get a much larger bird cooked. But so that's going to be the byproduct, is we are going to save all of our scraps. So don't throw those out as we go along. One of the things that I'm going to do in order to prepare for this is I'm going to get my broth bag ready. Now, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know that I love these things. You buy them on Amazon. They come in like sets of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. Anyway, I can link them below. It makes it really easy to just throw whatever it is you want in there, as well as when you're making freezer meals and things like that, it makes it easy to pour everything in here. This here, the center of the celery, is something that's an example that I'm going to put into this bag. Okay, here we are. Everything's washed and ready to start cutting up. Over here, of course, I have not peeled and washed my onions or my garlic quite yet. I'm going to do that as I get to each project. So we're going to start with the easiest stuff first, and that is going to be the vegetables that don't need blanched. So included in that group are green onions, regular onions, garlic, cilantro, bell peppers. We're going to go ahead and get these ready, get them diced up and get them ready. So what we'll start with is the bell peppers. So the bell peppers don't need blanched. They just need to be cleaned out and sliced up. So the parts that you want out is obviously all of the seeds, and then also this fleshy part, the little white strips. You want to remove all of that as well. And so you're going to be left with just a hollowed out pepper. I'm going to give all these a quick rinse to make sure all the seeds are out. So probably one of the easiest vegetables that you can freeze is the bell pepper. It really requires very little. You don't have to pre-freeze on a tray. If you'd like to, you sure can, because like I said, it just prevents each individual slice from sticking together, is one of the main reasons for that. What you want to do is kind of cut them very similar in size and thickness, best you can. A couple different ways you can do this. You can throw it just right into a Ziploc bag and suck the air out of it, or you can put it in a food saver bag. Because I believe I'm going to be using these fairly quickly, I'm just going to stick these in here. And then for storing in my freezer, I'm either going to want them to be fairly flat, so I can just put layers and layers, or depending on how I'm storing them in my freezer, I'm going to want them to be nice and, so I can roll them up and just stick them in a little spot. So I'm going to roll this one up, and this is ready. Besides the fact that I want to put what it is and the date that I did it. So, and frozen bell peppers can last in the freezer up to about 8 months. So I put on there used by July 25, and that should keep me fairly safe. So this is probably backwards too, but it says today's date, bell peppers, and then used by 8/25. And I can use this same bag holder. This is completely up to you how much you want to put in each bag. The idea of putting just enough for one serving, for one meal, one recipe, makes sense to me, because I don't want to thaw out the whole thing and then be mandated to have to cook the rest of them in that week. I could be very specific, and I could be weighing these out and making sure that they're all even, but I'm just kind of eyeballing it because this is cooking, not bacon. Okay, so our next thing is going to be green onions, and pretty simple. We're just going to remove all of these roots, but we're not going to discard them. I'm going to put all of these into our broth bag. I'm going to come up here to this end, and I'm going to cut whatever withered ends are on there. And again, going into the broth bag. We're going to need to freeze these. We're going to freeze these in our freezer. So I'm going to prepare my tray. Like I said, just make sure whatever tray you have fits in your freezer. Okay. So now a couple things that you could do here is you could separate these and freeze the whites separate from the dark greens, because one thing about green onions is they say that when you freeze green onions, the white part can get a little soft and the green part can get a little tough. So if you want to keep those separate, you certainly can. We're just going to dice these up, and then we're going to freeze them on a tray. We're going to keep working on filling up this tray. Okay, so I'm going to take the ends and the outer peels, and I'm going to put that into our broth bag, because all of this will get strained after you make the broth, so it doesn't matter. And they say that these outside skins have a lot of vitamins in them. So now we're going to dice these and we're going to add them to our tray. I'm sure that there is a much more chef way of cutting onion, but I'm not a chef. And I can barely see. My eyes are watering so bad. Okay, so now one other thing to think about is if we were not dicing these onions and we were going to, my rings are pretty terrible looking, but if we were going to be preserving them as rings, we would be blanching them for just about 10 or 15 seconds in the hot water and then putting them directly into an ice cold bath to get them to stop cooking. And but we're dicing ours today, so they just need to be frozen on this tray. Green onions and yellow onions. We're just going to throw them in the freezer for about 2 hours, just until they're frozen. Now that my tear ducts are all drained out, cleaned out, we're going to move on to garlic. So there's several things that we can do with garlic to preserve it in this method. We can preserve it as a whole bulb. Just stick it in a bag, throw it in the freezer, done. We can break it out and freeze each individual clove of garlic, each one of these. Some people might leave it with the little paper skin on. Some people may take that off first. The other thing that you can do is you can just simply mince it up, dice it up really fine, and put it in a bag and freeze it that way. Or you can roast it with butter and oil and then cool that off and actually freeze that in maybe ice cube trays. The trouble I have in my house with garlic is I love having fresh garlic on hand, but it always starts to sprout on me and I can never seem to use it up fast enough. And I have been in the habit of buying jarred minced garlic. So this, I'm going to take it out of the skins and make sure I get all of those sprouts off. And then that way I'm going to turn it into minced garlic. Did you know about this trick? If you smash it with a knife, it will pop the peels off. Sometimes people will just pop them in a mason jar and shake them until the peels come off. And that is another way of doing it. All right. So now that I got several of this garlic out, I'm going to pull out some of these skins. I'm going to add them to my broth bag. Now there's several things that I can do here. I can just mince this and put it in a bag to be frozen, or I can cook it with some butter and oil. Okay, so now I have taken an excruciating long time to get this much minced garlic. I am going to take, these are not freezer bags, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these big cloves, and I did end up tearing apart all of the bulbs. And I'm going to put them in these little bags, and then I'm going to put these little bags inside of a freezer bag so that I can take them out as needed. So again, just going to garlic cloves, 11/2 of 24. And garlic can last up to 6 months in your freezer in different forms. So now I'm going to come back to this minced garlic with oil. Use the back side of my knife. Just kind of dividing that up into squares. I'm going to stick it straight into the freezer just like that and have it freeze. So making those little squares makes it to where when I need a little pinch of minced garlic, I can just break off a little chunk and throw it in my pan, and I don't have to thaw out the whole entire thing. So one little trick for you there. We're going to move on to our cilantro. I'm not going to add the cilantro trimmings to my broth bag just because I don't care for that taste of cilantro in broth. Some people really prefer to not have the stems in their stuff and just use the leaves. I don't care what part of the plant it is. They say that the leaves and the stems of cilantro have different flavors. Personally, I like all of it, but the stems tend to have a stronger, more intense flavor that maybe not everybody wants as on a garnish or something. So some people may separate out a little more the leaves. Personally, I don't like a lot of stems, but I don't mind some stems being in with my cilantro. One other way of preserving cilantro without freezing it is to put it in a glass with water in it and put it in your fridge like that. Just put some water in here and put it in your fridge if you're going to use it in the next week or so. All right, so now we're just going to put a little cilantro. So you can put, mix some water with this and make ice cubes. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to do very similar to what we did with the garlic. And we're just going to add it all in here. So again, using the back side of the knife, not the front side. Okay, I'm gonna pop these in the freezer just like that. I'm gonna run these things out of the freezer. Our garlic, cloves, our peppers. All right, moving on to lemon. I never have lemon zest when I need lemon zest, and I hardly ever have a lemon when I need a lemon. Hopefully this will solve that problem. So now this is something, we are going to take this, we're going to put all of this onto this plate, and I'm going to freeze it before I bag it. Now, we're going to do wedges. So I'm taking all the seeds out, and this round I'm going to take the rinds off. Same thing. Next up is we are going to put away the extra ginger root. We bought a big old chunk of it to do our fire cider, but I don't want to use it all or waste it all. Okay, so we're gonna take the ginger, we're gonna wrap it up in plastic wrap, and then we're gonna put it inside of a freezer bag and we're gonna freeze it. And I'm doing 3 individual, again, just manageable sizes. If I think about what I'm gonna use it for next, what size would I want to pull out of the freezer? And that's the only thing, it's no science to it. It's just simply what makes sense for when I'm gonna use it or when you're gonna use it. Package it that way. I'm gonna throw these other lemon rinds in here because I may use them for other things besides cooking, such as disinfecting, things like that. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go, and because these are already pre-frozen, I'm gonna just keep them in a Ziploc bag so that I can quickly open it, take what I want, close it back up and throw it back in the freezer. And I'm not gonna worry about portioning out the onion. That is definitely the benefit of pre-freezing, is that it's not gonna become one big giant clump.
going to push all the air out. And this goes to the freezer. I'm going to take my lemon peels and my ginger at the same time. Hi. Sorry, my phone died in the middle of that, and then I was like, that's a good time to make dinner. So I made dinner, and it was disgusting. Okay, so we talked about it. The meal that we made, we're going to save it, and we're going to rehab it. We're going to bring it out in a couple nights again. We're going to add more hamburger, more shells, and we're going to add milk. And we think it'll come out a lot better. Anyway, I just want to follow up and say, so I got some carrots that I'm going to put in the freezer. The yellow onions are going to go in the freezer. And because they're pre-froze, I can just dish them out for whatever. So I'm not worried about putting them all into one bag. Whereas like the carrots, I'm doing in portions. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lemon zest and the lemon, and I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to put those in bags and put them in the freezer so they're accessible. Okay, so to wrap this up, we're going to do our tomatoes and our celery. And both of them are going to be able to keep in the freezer for about a year if they stay frozen. So we're going to make little X's on the bottoms of our tomatoes, just right on the skin only. We're going to pop them into the boiling water, and we're going to put them in there for just like 30 to 60 seconds. And then we're going to pull them out, put them straight into that cold water bath, and then pull them out. And then those skins should just come right off. And then we have options. We can either put them right into the Ziploc bags or the freezer bags whole like that without the skins on them. Or we can dice them up and put them in the bag and have nice diced tomatoes. Or we can put them into a food processor or Magic Bullet or something and do a puree. Any of those work. Put them all in the freezer bags, throw them in the freezer, you're done. That's it. Fantastic. So then you got some tomatoes put up for in the middle of winter. The thing with the celery is we're gonna pop them in here for about 2 minutes in the boiling water and then throw them in the cold water bath. And then we're gonna dry them off. We're gonna put them on our tray. We're gonna put them in the freezer. We're gonna them all individually frozen, and then we're gonna throw them in the bags and then put them in the freezer, and they'll stay for a year. So I'm gonna get on that. Just gonna make little X's on the bottoms of them, just through the skin. And that just allows the skin to slide off that much easier. Here we have some different tomatoes that came out of my friend's garden. We salvaged right before the frost. I'm gonna put them up so I can have them midwinter. Look at that thing, looks like an orange, but it's a tomato. Start with the Romas. It's gonna be 30 to 60 seconds, probably closer to 45. Okay, now we'll throw in our other tomatoes. Okay, so let me show you. See how that skin just slides right off of there? A beautiful thing. Ooh, slimy. There it is. And then we're going to cut these stems out. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the celery. And we're going to cut these in like, 1-inch pieces. I know a lot of people that do this say they measure with their heart. But when it comes to actual measurements, I measure by my inches, not inches. My husband, if something needs to be specific, I have to go get him and say, Derek, I need you to measure with inches and not ishes. Be very careful putting these in. That splatter is awfully hot. We got all of our freezer stuff put away, and oh my goodness, that was a big long day. That was a really long day. But in the end, it doesn't look like much, but I tell you what, it's gonna last a whole lot longer this way than if I would have left it as regular produce on the counter. So we got lemon wedges, lemon zest, some green onions, some carrots. I got bell peppers, and this one here, garlic cloves, yellow onions, ginger root, lemon peels, yellow squash, zucchini, tomatoes, and tomatoes and tomatoes. And somewhere I have some more garlic. The minced, oh, it's in here. So here I have the cilantro and minced garlic that I have in these little cubes. And also, not to be forgotten, we have our broth veggies. So I just continued to put as much as I possibly could in here. So I got celery and onion and carrots and garlic. Probably about it, but that is a really good start. I can, once I peel the meat off of the chicken that I have in the fridge, I will be ready to make a thing of bone broth. This did it for me. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the art of preserving food. There's so many different ways to do it, and it's not as hard as you think it is. It's time consuming, yes, but it pays off in the end, especially when we're coming into this cold time of the year where we're not gonna have access to a lot of really fresh stuff, and it's just, everything's just getting so expensive. So don't let it rot in your fridge. Get it in the freezer, get it in the canner, do something with it so that you're able to preserve your hard work, your money, your resources, and make something good this year. All right, I hope you have a great day and God bless you.